What if the coincidences you keep brushing aside were the whispers of your own soul trying to get your attention? What if the universe wasn't random at all, but weaving signs into your life, quietly, desperately, hoping you'd notice? You know the feeling. The moment when reality seems to lean in closer, the moment when something small and ordinary feels impossibly heavy with meaning. The moment when you wonder, just for a second, if you're not as alone as you thought. Maybe you've been told you're too sensitive. Maybe you've learned to doubt the things that once made you feel alive. Maybe you've been taught that noticing too much is dangerous in a world that demands you stay numb. But what if the very things you've been taught to ignore, the chills down your spine, the echoes you can't explain, the patterns that make your heart race, are the truest conversations you'll ever have? Carl Jung once wrote, "We often think we are the ones remembering something, but perhaps it is something remembering us." He called it synchronicity, the moments when your inner world and the outer world collide, not by cause, but by meaning. A secret language life speaks, not with facts, but with symbols. A way for the universe to meet you halfway if only you dared to listen. Maybe that phone call you received at the exact moment you needed it wasn't an accident. Maybe that song that played when you thought of someone wasn't just luck. Maybe that dream, that chance meeting, that repetition you can't explain, was never meant to be explained. In a world that worships proof, to notice the whisper is an act of courage. To follow it is an act of remembering. Because maybe life was never random, maybe it was always speaking, and maybe the real miracle isn't that you heard it, but that you're still listening. There are those who notice the things others miss, not because they're smarter, not because they're looking harder, but because somewhere along the way they refuse to shut their senses down. Maybe you're one of them. Maybe you've always been. You see the coincidences others laugh off. You feel the silent meanings that ripple beneath ordinary moments. You recognize the patterns weaving through the noise, even when everyone else insists there's nothing there. And maybe, over time, you've been made to question that gift, told you were imagining it, told you were being naive, told you were chasing shadows. But what if you're not? Jung called it the intuitive type, those who don't just move through the world, but sense the hidden architecture holding it all together. And modern science, without meaning to, gives you reason to trust that sense. Because even today, physicists admit 95% of the universe is made of dark matter and dark energy. Unseen, unmeasured, undeniably real. If almost everything that exists is invisible to the human eye, is it really so foolish to trust what you feel but cannot prove? Jung once shared the story of a woman who dreamed of a golden scarab, an ancient symbol of transformation. The next day, during a therapy session, a rare beetle, a real scarab, tapped at the window, insisting to be let in. Not a metaphor, not a symbol drawn in ink or mind, a real thing, a real answer from a world that was listening. Science will call it coincidence, skeptics will call it chance. But deep down you know better, because the more you open yourself to the whispers, the more the world starts to hum with a secret music, a language older than words. A map drawn in invisible ink, revealing itself only to those willing to walk by trust, not by sight. You don't have to prove it to anyone. You don't have to convince those who refuse to see. Your job isn't to justify the magic, it's to follow it step by step, thread by golden thread. Because the ones who dare to see meaning in the chaos are the ones who turn chaos into a story only they can live, a story only they can tell. Most people drift through life convinced everything is random. They never stop long enough to notice the secret stitches. But if you pay attention, the world starts to show its hand. Lily wasn't looking for a miracle. She was just another traveler, lost in the noise of Shanghai, one face among millions. Before she left, a friend had joked, "Maybe you'll run into him. He's over there too." They laughed, the way you laugh at impossible things. And yet, standing in a random hotel lobby thousands of miles from home, She looked up, and there he was, the friend they had joked about, smiling like he had been waiting for her all along. Maybe you chalk that up to chance. Maybe you explain it away with probability. But maybe, deep down, you know better. Because when the invisible threads of life pull you across oceans, when reality bends just enough to meet you halfway, it doesn't feel like math. It feels like being remembered. Or take Simon, sitting in a clinic in Melbourne, staring at a framed photo on the wall, a hospital, a place he didn't recognize until he did. The Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh, the place where, as a boy, he had limped into the emergency room with a torn-up knee, a memory so deeply buried it had almost vanished. Until now. Until the past reached through time and tapped him on the shoulder, and, when the therapist walked in, she casually mentioned she had trained at that same hospital, as if life wasn't done stitching the pieces together. Coincidence, they say, simple chance. But the soul knows better. The soul feels the hum beneath the math, the tug of the golden thread pulling through invisible hands. Because when the outer world collides so perfectly with the inner one, it doesn't matter how many calculations you run. You don't walk away feeling statistical. You walk away feeling seen. And maybe the real miracle isn't that it happened. Maybe the real miracle is that you noticed. Because most people sleep through these moments, but not you. You are still awake. And every time you notice the impossible thread, you pull a little closer to the life that's been calling your name all along. But just as the wonder begins to bloom, another voice rises, sharper, colder, demanding evidence. It whispers that you're foolish, that you're seeing patterns that aren't there, that you're desperate for meaning where none exists. And it's persuasive because it speaks the language the world rewards, the language of numbers, of facts, of certainty. Science even has a name for it, apophenia, the brain's tendency to see connections in random noise. Faces in clouds, songs in the static, meaning where, according to logic, there should be none. Michael Shermer calls it patternicity, the evolutionary reflex that helped our ancestors survive. Better to see a predator that isn't there than to miss the one that is. Better to invent meaning than to walk blind through chaos. And statistically, in a world of 8 billion people and infinite collisions, unlikely things are supposed to happen. Songs play when you think of someone. Dreams echo reality. Paths cross at the perfect moment. Not because of fate, but because randomness multiplied by infinity sometimes looks designed. That's what the voice says. That's how it tries to quiet the tremor in your chest. And maybe it's right. Maybe some things really are just chance. But here's the deeper truth. Even if every strange coincidence could be explained by statistics, the ache you feel when the universe brushes against you is real. No algorithm accounts for wonder. No probability model explains the lump in your throat when reality seems to recognize you. You can live by numbers. You can flatten your world until it's neat and manageable and sterile. But if you do, you will have to silence the part of yourself that was built for awe. Because wonder isn't a flaw in your programming. It's a feature of your soul. Jung knew this tension. He never asked you to abandon reason. He asked you to hold mystery and mind together, to live in the sacred tension between knowing and not knowing, because the universe doesn't owe you proof. It only ever offered you an invitation. You can reject it, dismiss it, mock it, or you can listen. And live like every breath might mean more than you think. And if you choose to listen, if you dare to believe that not everything needs to be measured to be real, then you'll find yourself living a different kind of life, a life where the ordinary world shines with secret doors, a life where you are never really alone, a life where sometimes the universe leans closer and whispers, "I see you too." There's a cost to seeing what others miss, a quiet price that almost no one warns you about. Because when you open yourself to the hidden patterns, you also open yourself to the weight of them. You don't just feel the beauty others overlook. You feel the loneliness of noticing too much. You feel the ache of realizing that most people aren't paying attention. You feel the sorrow of living in a world that insists magic isn't real, and it's exhausting. To keep carrying meanings that others mock. To keep feeling connected when others feel nothing. To keep sensing that there's more when the world demands less. Maybe you've wondered if it would be easier to stop noticing, to silence the whispers, to shrink your soul back down to a manageable size, to harden yourself against the ache, but you can't, not without losing something essential. Because the pain you feel isn't weakness, it's the side effect of a mind still capable of awe. It's the side effect of a heart that hasn't turned to stone. Rumi said, "Sorrow prepares you for joy." It violently sweeps everything out of your house so that new joy can find space to enter. The ache is clearing space. The sorrow is hollowing you out so that something greater can be poured in. And here's the paradox. The more deeply you allow yourself to feel the sadness of meaning, the more profoundly you can feel the joy of it too, because wonder and grief are woven together. You cannot numb one without numbing the other. You cannot close the door to pain and still expect to find magic waiting for you. Pain carves out the space. Surrender fills it. It's like the birds who do not fly by conquering the air. They fall first. They fall and fall until the falling becomes flight. Maybe your heart has been falling. Maybe it has been breaking not because you were wrong to believe, but because you were right. Maybe the ache is not a flaw to be corrected. Maybe it's the gravity of meaning itself, pulling you toward a life more real than you ever imagined. And if it hurts, if it feels unbearable at times, then remember you were never meant to carry it alone. You were meant to let it change you. You were meant to let it open you. You were meant to let it make you lighter. Because the more deeply you feel the sorrow, the greater your capacity for wonder. And wonder, not certainty, is the beginning of everything. At some point, the questions stop being about proof. They stop being about whether the signs are real. They stop being about whether you're making it all up. And they start being about something much simpler, much braver. They start being about trust. If you have ever felt the invisible threads pulling at your life, if you have ever glimpsed meaning flickering behind coincidence, if you have ever sensed that there is more moving through the world than facts can explain, then you are already on the path of the mystic, not the mystic lost in dreams, not the mystic detached from reality, but the one who walks in the world fully awake to its secret life. Jung understood this path. He knew that archetypes like the mystic, the seer, the pilgrim were not fantasies we imagined. They were patterns of the soul revealing themselves through us, patterns older than memory, older than history, older than doubt. And if you dare to trust that whisper inside you, you'll find that you are not alone. You never were. The patterns were always there. The story was always unfolding. You are not inventing the magic. You are finally learning to recognize it. Joseph Campbell said, "Follow your bliss and the universe will open doors for you where there were only walls." It doesn't mean the road will be easy. It means the road will be yours. Because following the thread of synchronicity, following the symbols, the signs, the subtle pulls, doesn't just lead you to new places. It leads you back to yourself. The part of you that never forgot, the part of you that never stopped believing, the part of you that was never really lost, only waiting to be found again. And so here you are, standing at the threshold of wonder. The invitation has always been there, waiting, patient, soft as a whisper, but strong enough to pull you across a lifetime. If this spoke to something sleeping inside you, don't keep it buried. Share it, pass it on, fan the flame in someone else, because the world needs more people who still believe. It needs more people willing to see the sacred hidden inside the ordinary. It needs you, exactly as you are, exactly as you were always meant to be, a mystic walking among the broken things, gathering the golden threads, weaving the impossible back into the everyday. And if you listen closely enough, you'll hear it again. The universe leaning in, smiling quietly, whispering back, "I see you too."